For many years, I have exclusively rented a place to live, apartments, and for a time a single room in a house full of fellow renters. Despite this, I've always wanted to own my own land, separated from the city. Not only that, I've dreamed of building my own house the way I would like it to be. It's the current state of things, however, that we're stuck in a rut of renting. The majority of college students and unmarried adults rent their houses or apartments. As of 2017, nearly 60% of Albuquerque residents rented rather than owning a home. When looking at your monthly rent bill, the price might not seem like an exorbitant amount. In Albuquerque, the average monthly rent is $867, while last year it was $834, an increase of 4%. While Albuquerque monthly rent is significantly lower than the national average, both rates. In the same vein, as of July 2019, the average utilities bill, including average monthly internet price, is in a 480 square foot apartment is $174 for one person. Add these costs together, and suddenly the yearly cost of living in this is only the monetary cost of renting. Obnoxious neighbors, incessant city noises, non-existent parking, and negligent landlords are some of the worst tolls taken on by renters. To escape the exorbitant rent price of renting, I advocate for investing upfront to rescue us from these long. Let's take an example of purchasing a $100,000 house. Bernalillo County's property tax rate is 0.81%. Using a mortgage calculator and applying a 30-year mortgage with 20% down, $20,000, the mortgage payments become. Instead of settling for second best, we should invest our time, money, and labor into purchasing land in a quiet corner or outskirt of Albuquerque to build our own home. In our construction, we should strive to exceed common building standards today by designing for reduced utility usage. To this end, the Earthship is the ideal structure as it's designed to passively reduce energy consumption and produce its own water and electricity, all while being partially constructed by recycled materials and just plain dirt. Hunkered down into the ground, but opening up to face the south with tall windows, Earthship also aims to reduce utility bills by producing its own electricity and collecting its own water. Southern-facing solar panels on the roof bring in electricity during the day to be stored in a battery bank. A cistern buried beneath the north wall collects water gathered on the roof to be filtered and distributed to the household appliances. One of the appealing things about an Earthship is that it doesn't require mastery of architecture or carpentry skills to construct. The trade-off is that it instead requires vast amounts of strenuous labor. Thus, it often takes a long time to complete, depending on the number of people working. So on that note, let's get started on what the. Assuming you've already properly designed and planned your building project, the first step is to level out the land you're building on. The ideal location for an Earthship is somewhere with very gentle hills. Because the north wall and the part of the east and west walls are buried in dirt, it's preferable to build into the side of a hill. Once leveled, and with the resultant pile of dirt conveniently nearby, the next step is to construct the tire wall. This process involves packing the tires full of dirt, making them gigantic solid bricks that stack up on top of each other. To do this, loose dirt is first shoveled into the tire. At set intervals, steel culverts will be built into this wall, where they will be buried into the hill behind. These are the cooling tubes bringing in the air that's cooled underground. In addition, smaller inlets will also pierce the tire wall to pump water into the house from the cistern, which will be buried behind the north wall. Next, the south face of the house is built with simple wood framing sitting on top of a perhaps 2-foot tire wall. This tire wall serves two purposes. First, it lifts the windows off the ground, somewhat protecting them from damage. Second, they provide a small amount of thermal mass and insulation to the front space. Next, the roof is built, supported only by the north tire wall and viga support pillars. Because the tire wall is all one height, while the roof rises at a slant towards the south face, something will be needed to hold up the south corners. On the east and west ends of the tire wall, this is accomplished by a large concrete. At this stage, we see many gaps in the building shell, between the roof and the tops of the walls, along with between the southern face and the east and west tire wall. With the roof already installed, it's clear these sections aren't load-bearing. Traditionally, the less visible gaps are filled with a can wall. Tin cans sealed. Instead of either option, I propose installing straw bale walls to seal both types of gaps. First of all, straw bales are, obviously, naturally occurring. Thus, they are eco-friendly and renewable. Best of all, they provide a great deal of insulation while also being comparatively easy and fast to install. Once the basic shell of the Earthship is created, it's time to install the utilities. Solar panels are installed on the roof, along with an attendant battery bank and the rest of the system. While the battery bank can rest either outside or inside, the charge controller inverted and the rest of the parts must reside. Once the cistern is planted, insulation can be installed. Because it's the only type that can endure both elements and being buried in dirt or rocks, rigid foam board is used. As of yet, there is no equivalent green option. Sheathing the outside of the tire walls, the cistern is brought into this envelope by instead. Because much of the wiring and plumbing is meant to be concealed in the walls or floor, these things must be roughed in next. Again, this requires detailed blueprints so it is clear where all the appliances are going to go and where the internal partitioning walls will be built. These internal walls are not load-bearing and thus can be. From here, the last step is installing the interior features: doors, appliances, furniture, you name it. This phase is only dependent on the personal preferences of the builder. Completing these steps means you've built yourself an eco-friendly, sustainable Earthship. Average person can build their own Earthship with only a few qualifications to get them started. First, the person must be willing to save up money and spend up front with the hopes of saving in the future. Second, this person must have a modicum of skill in wielding a sledgehammer and tacking two boards together. Thirdly, they must be willing. Despite much of the Earthship being made with reclaimed materials, the building as a whole is hardly cheap. Estimates for building an Earthship yourself can range from $75 to $175 a square foot and beyond. This wide cost range is caused by a myriad of choices made in the construction process. In the long run, however, money will still be saved due to the greatly reduced utility costs. Additionally, the building of an Earthship comes with the greatest reward of owning your own home on a piece of quiet land. For me, I've always wanted to design and build my own green, energy-efficient house. So the ultimate prize would be finding